The war in the Middle East has sent oil and gas prices soaring, and it's already caused chaos in countries which rely on fossil fuel imports. Renewable energy is a clear alternative, but UN climate negotiations are at an impasse, and the US president is actively opposed to wind and solar energy.
We will drill, baby, drill.
Nevertheless, the war is giving a new push to low-carbon power, in particular cheap solar panels.
Those who fought to keep the world hooked on fossil fuels are inadvertently supercharging the global renewables boom.
So could this really be clean power's big moment, or will fossil fuels continue to dominate global energy? For everything on this story and all the latest global news, don't forget to subscribe to AFP. Here at a bustling market in Lahore, sales of new solar panels are booming. In 2023, Pakistan imported nearly 70% of its oil, making it highly vulnerable to rising prices. And in response to the war in the Middle East, its government has raised the price of diesel by more than half. That's making solar panels increasingly attractive.
फ्यूल का जो इस वक्त सिचुएशन है हमारे मुल्क में, फ्यूल तो रेंज से बाहर हो गया है। उसमें अगर हम सोलर पे चले जाएं तो कम से कम एक साइड से हम इसमें थोड़ी सी बचत कर सकते हैं। उसमें आम आदमी पे थोड़ा सा कम लोड पड़ेगा।
The country's shift towards solar started well before the war, at a time when Pakistan didn't have tariffs on cheap panels from China, helping them flood the market. By the end of 2025, solar energy already accounted for nearly a quarter of Pakistan's electricity production, and the Middle East war is likely to push that proportion even higher. But relying on the sun isn't an option everywhere, and other countries are exploring different energy sources. A project gaining new attention in France is geothermal energy. Traditionally associated with seismically active countries, such as Iceland, geothermal can also work in more tectonically stable places like here on the outskirts of Paris. The technology is called shallow geothermal, which uses the temperature of the subsoil and water at depths of less than 200 meters to bring heat to the surface. That's less of an engineering challenge than traditional deep geothermal, which produces more heat, but requires drilling as much as 2 kilometers into the ground. The energy produced here is already having an impact.
Depuis 2023, c'est à peu près entre 25 et 30% d'économie face à l'inflation actualisée, dernier indice du prix du gaz. C'est entre 300 et 400 000 euros d'économie annuelle réalisée sur le gisement énergétique, on va dire gaz historique.
While shallow geothermal can be built in more places than the deep version, it still requires the right kind of subsoil. And though long-term energy bills are low, significant upfront investment is still required. Given the limitations on various types of renewables, this German village has discovered it's best to have a mix of sources. Home to just 130 people, Feldheim is fueled entirely by renewables in what could be a glimpse of the future for more and more of us. There are wind farms nearby and solar panels on many roofs. When there's no wind and the sun isn't shining, they burn a mix of biogas and wood chips. Unlike fossil fuels, these don't add new carbon to the atmosphere.
Also das ist unsere neue Heizung. Wir haben die Wärme, bekommen wir ja von der Biogasanlage. Wir haben im ganzen Ort Warmwasserleitungen verlegt. 3 Kilometer wurden im Ort verlegt. Und das kommt dann hier an und versorgt unser ganzes Haus. Also über die Kriege mache ich mir schon Gedanken. Man denkt immer, das ist alles weit weg, aber es kann auch ganz schnell mal umschlagen und da hat man schon seine Sorge. Man hofft, dass es hier nicht herkommt, sage ich jetzt einfach mal, und wo wir ja mit den erneuerbaren Energien versorgt sind, dass es immer so weitergeht.
But there's life in fossil fuels yet, and not just in the Middle East. Here in Taft, California, an oil festival is held every 5 years. Previous parades harked back to Taft's early 20th century glory days. But at the most recent festival, there were hopes that the good times could be about to come back, thanks to US President Donald Trump.
I'm very 100% satisfied with President Trump. As for the state of California, I think he's putting a nice pressure on them to hopefully turn around their prejudice against oil industry. I was born and raised here, and this is the worst I've ever seen it for the oil industry.
California has pledged to abandon oil drilling by 2045 to meet its climate goals. But on a national level, it's a different story, with the boom in fracking since 2010 helping make the US the #1 oil producer in the world. The war in Iran has only increased demand for US oil, with Trump saying exports from terminals in Texas and Louisiana have risen in response to the Strait of Hormuz blockade.
And they can't blackmail us. In fact, a lot of the ships are coming up to Texas. I don't know if you know, in Louisiana, the ships are coming up. They got used to it. Maybe they'll keep doing it. It's worked out pretty good.
Of course, the US had agreed to cut its CO2 emissions under 2015's landmark Paris Climate Agreement. But Donald Trump pulled the country out of that. The US didn't even send a delegation to the UN's most recent climate talks, COP30 in Brazil. Those countries that did attend failed to reach any new agreement on moving away from fossil fuels after oil-producing nations vetoed such language. That's why around 60 countries recently met separately in Colombia to agree stronger voluntary cuts in carbon emissions. The UN's climate chief insists renewable energy will benefit from the current disruption.
The fossil fuel cost crisis now has its foot on the throat of the global economy and stagflation on the march. From this tragedy, an immense irony is unfolding. Those who fought to keep the world hooked on fossil fuels are inadvertently supercharging the global renewables boom.
Even among countries which accept the science on climate change, recent energy price rises have sparked debate over how much to exploit remaining fossil fuel reserves. Britain's Energy Secretary is clear on where the UK's future ultimately lies.
For Britain and so many other countries, clean energy is now the only route to financial security, energy security, and indeed national security.
Nevertheless, there are calls for the government to increase extraction from North Sea oil and gas fields, which have seen years of declining output. In a world of disrupted supplies, the key for many nations will be to ensure energy security, whatever the source.
I think that countries will start advancing and accelerating the energy transition, but at the same time, countries that will probably start tapping on own domestic resources to make sure that they are sort of blocked from any potential geopolitical disruptions around the world.
With global demand for energy rising, the Middle East war may ultimately boost renewable energy, but also focus competition for fossil fuels. Governments are being forced to think harder about where their supplies come from and how they can secure them in an uncertain world.